Right, welcome back. Welcome to the channel. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Matt, aka the Doc in the Arena, and I'm back giving you the medical take on sporting topics. Now today we're talking UFC 257, more specifically Conor McGregor getting whooped by Dustin Poirier. Now I was shocked at this result because, you know, he's Conor McGregor, he's kind of, the way he talks, you assume he's kind of that guy, but you know, it didn't work out for him. Although I will preface my comments by saying anyone who puts their life on the line essentially by getting in that octagon immediately earned my respect. So I'm not winding him up. But the internet does remain undefeated and the memes were incredible. That aside, one thing struck me and drove me to do this video. So after the fight, Conor mentioned several times about this low calf kick and how it really basically cost him the fight. And I'm thinking to myself, Conor, I don't think it was that. I think it was a multiple punches to the head that kind of was the deciding factor. Listen to these quotes by Conor McGregor, right? My leg is completely dead. And even though I felt like I was checking them, it was just sinking into the muscle at the front of the leg and it was very badly compromised. It's like an American football with my suit at the minute. So I was like, okay, gosh, like this is clearly a very important technique. I was thinking in my head in the second round to tie up with him because I was better in the clinch, but too little, too late. The leg was compromised and I didn't adjust. Fair play to Dustin. And this was the interesting one as well. He goes, that calf kick, that low calf kick, I've never experienced that before. It was a good one. Those leg kicks are not to be messed with. So after I saw those quotes, I thought, you know, let me look into the details of this. Let me look into the anatomy and basically explain to you why these kicks are devastating. As I always say, if you like this type of content, just do the basics. Firstly, like, if you like, subscribe, comment, get involved, ask me questions. I like answering questions, and share. Sharing is quite a big part of growing a channel, so any help will do. Thank you very much. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is simple. I'm going to take you through the anatomy of Conor McGregor's right lower leg, and then I can use that anatomy to explain why damage to that area would be devastating for a UFC fighter. I'm sure you'll be able to follow easily. Let's go. So what we can see here is a front-on view of Conor McGregor's right lower leg, okay? So we can see this big bone here, which is the tibia, your shin bone. You can feel that easily in your lower leg. But what I'm more interested in is this smaller bone, just lateral to it, called the fibula. Now this takes about 15 to 20% of your weight-bearing capacity when you walk or run, and what you can see here is comparatively small. Now that's relevant because if you're a UFC fighter, an MMA fighter, a good calf kick or lower leg kick could actually just fully break the structure, and obviously that's debilitating to your opponent. They've lost 15 to 20% of their ability to weight bear and they're very, very much compromised. So that's the first structure that's targeted with this kick. But let's add a few more, right? Okay, so I'm going to add a nerve. Okay, so yes. There we are. We found it already. So this nerve here, okay? Now let me zoom in. So what we can see here now is the common peroneal nerve or the common fibular nerve. And it travels all the way down from your posterior thigh and comes across basically this fibula bone that we spoke about earlier, right? And it passes under the fibula head and supplies innervation to your lower leg, okay? What we can see here, however, is that when it passes your fibula, it actually passes quite superficially. So if you feel your knee, right, the outer part of your knee, you can probably feel a little bump, and that's your fibula head, okay? And that nerve passes right underneath your fibula head. So if an MMA fighter targets that and is able to hit that nerve, you can cause something called a traumatic neuropraxia, which is a fancy way of saying a direct damage to the nerve, okay? Now, why is that significant? Why is that significant? Let me add another layer of nerves on and you'll see, okay? So this nerve has two main branches, okay? It's got its superficial branch here, which we can see, superficial fibular nerve, not making it up. And that supplies sensations to your lower leg, basically in the lateral component and parts of the anterior lower leg. So if that's injured, you can't feel your lower leg. But more importantly, it's got this deep branch that supplies innervation to the muscles of the lower leg, okay? So your tibialis anterior and some of your perineal muscles, right? So what that means is if you damage the common perineal nerve, you shut down those distal nerves and you can't move your foot up. You can't dorsiflex your foot, so you can't move it up, so point your foot towards you. And that causes something called foot drop. So Conor McGregor's in the Octagon against essentially a trained killer, and he's got a potentially broken leg so far. And also the nerve's probably shut down and he's dragging his foot along with him. I mean, that's just a horrendous position to be in, right? All just based on anatomy. It's a brilliant move, honestly. It blew my mind when I looked into it. Blew my mind. And that's not necessarily the end of it. Let's add more layers, okay? So we've got the bones, which potentially could be broken. We've got the nerves, which potentially could be shut down, as we can see here. Now let's add on some muscle, right? So on the anterolateral aspect of the lower leg, you've got some muscles here, right? So with these muscles, it's not necessarily important to know the names and exactly what they do. You know, we've already established that these nerves are potentially shut down and the muscles aren't working right. What's more important to know is from a practical point of view, they're quite small comparatively. Compare the muscles at the front of your lower leg, the front outer part of your lower leg, to, you know, those on your thigh. They're not very meaty and they don't provide much protection. So they don't provide much protection to the bone, as we've established. They don't provide much protection to the nerves, and in and of themselves, they're therefore vulnerable. So if we've said those muscles are quite small and not very meaty, if they get struck by an MMA fighter, they potentially are going to bruise very easily, fill up with blood, hematomas, and shut down the working of that muscle quite easily. And again, it leaves Conor in a very, very compromised position. So I'm pretty sure most people have had a dead leg on their anterior thigh, yeah? So your quads. But because it's such a big muscle, you know, you're able to function, you know, your leg feels stiff, but you can move on. Imagine that type of force, but in smaller muscles. Those muscles are shut down and there's very, very little you can do. So the moral of the story is this, essentially. Fighting is a thinking man's game, and the low calf kick is a genius move. I really didn't know too much about it, but it's clearly a genius move. It's got the propensity to cause a lot of damage in a small area, and Conor McGregor was essentially fighting with a bum leg. He had nothing. I was shocked at how much it affected him, and obviously he subsequently got knocked out. I hope you found that interesting and informative. If you want more of this type of content, let me know. Comment. Hit me with a little like. Why not? Subscribe and share. Share the knowledge, and we'll move forward together. Aside from that, let me drop my usual music. As you know, this is just a point of personal enjoyment for me, so just bear with me and I'll salute you out, yeah? There we are. Take care.